Back in the 40s, Quaker Oats gave hot breakfast a whole new meaning. Here's the dark, forgotten history of the skeleton that Quaker Oats hoped would never see the light of day. Between 1940 and 1950, Quaker Oats dosed dozens of kids with radioactive oatmeal, and none of them found out about it for half a century. In 2 experiments on a group of children from Fernald State School, MIT and Quaker Oats laced milk and oatmeal with radioactive tracers to better understand how the body absorbs specific nutrients. In a 3rd trial, the kids were directly injected with radioactive calcium. The children were none the wiser, and the details of this dark human experiment remained buried until 1993. How did it happen? It was a perfect storm of corporate interests, scientific curiosity, and eugenics.
You're gonna make a hot cereal lover out of you.
Out of me?
Do any research on Fernald State School, and it quickly becomes apparent that the place has a spotty track record in what you might call ethics. Its original name was the Massachusetts School for the Feeble-Minded. It housed children with developmental disabilities, in addition to youngsters who'd been ditched by their parents or otherwise had nowhere else to go. One former patient, Fred Boyce, went to Fernald when he was 8 years old, and later said of the mindset instilled in them by the facility, "We thought we were some kind of, people that wasn't supposed to be born." At Fernald, those children were supposed to believe that. They were, quote, feeble-minded and had no purpose in society. See, Fernald was one of many schools at the time that espoused eugenics. Keep the genetically undesirable people separate from everyone else. As CBS News put it was basically a holding pen for these children who might never be given the chance to leave. Fernald might have been called a school, but the children weren't taught or educated. They worked on the campus, performing the manual labor that kept the institution rolling. And you better believe it got darker. One of the jobs tasked to the residents was to cut the brains of deceased children into slices for scientific study.
My job there was cleaning test tubes, counting and cutting brains.
Going by the accounts of former residents, it was hell on earth. But one person's hell is another's gold mine. Here was a tailor-made population ripe for experimentation, with no pesky parents or guardians to question anything. MIT was interested in nutritional science. Quaker Oats was interested in getting a market edge over its main competitor, cream of wheat. Specifically, research at the time was suggesting that some whole grains like oats, the entire basis of Quaker Oats' business, contained a compound called phytate that might inhibit the body's ability to uptake iron and calcium. Basically, oats were getting a bad rap among increasingly health-minded consumers, and Quaker Oats needed to put a stop to that before it affected their bottom line. So they hooked up with MIT and concocted a science club and lured in recruits at Fernald, children like Fred Boyce, with promises of special perks, Boston Red Sox tickets, Mickey Mouse watches, and oatmeal. Lots and lots of oatmeal. The fact that the oats were coated in radioactive tracers was never divulged.
A good hot bowl of Quaker Oats. That'll warm him up.
It wasn't until 1993 that a Boston Globe reporter stumbled across the recently declassified records of the experiment and published an exposé that launched the scandal into the national spotlight. The subsequent government hearings revealed that those science club members had been given doses of up to 330 millirems, about the same amount of radiation as 30 X-rays done back-to-back. It's an amount that might contribute to a small increase in cancer, but in reality, not terribly detrimental to health. The outrage stemmed from the fact that MIT and Quaker Oats had conducted these experiments on developmentally challenged children who'd never given informed consent. To say that this was a dark chapter in a rather dark period of scientific pursuit is putting it lightly, but at least there's a somewhat happy ending to the tale. 30 former test subjects successfully sued Quaker Oats and MIT and received a $1.85 million settlement, about $60,000 a person. At the end of the day, a state panel agreed that the experiments were a flagrant violation of the human rights of all those kids. And it was all done, in the words of a local newspaper, for the commercial benefit of Quaker Oats.